The city hummed with the joyful, yet frantic, energy of the approaching Christmas holidays. Inside her tall, glass office building, Eleanor Vance, a woman known for her sharp mind and even sharper suits, looked out at the twinkling lights beginning to adorn the streets below. As the CEO of Vance Global, her days were a whirlwind of important decisions and high-stakes meetings. Yet, even with all her power and success, one thought always managed to cut through the corporate noise: her daughter, Lily. Lily was Eleanor's world, a bright spark of 11 years old, and the thought of her being alone during the school break made Eleanor's perfectly organized mind race with worry. Usually, Lily would be off to a special Christmas camp, but this year, plans had changed. Eleanor's schedule was unusually packed, leaving little room for the relaxed, festive activities Lily deserved. The holidays, while magical for many, often brought an extra layer of stress for Eleanor, especially when it came to Lily's safety and happiness. Eleanor pictured Lily wandering through crowded malls with friends or even just walking home from a holiday playdate. The world, for all its beauty, also held dangers, and Eleanor, more than anyone, understood the importance of protection. She wasn't just a CEO, she was a mother, and a mother's instincts were often stronger than any business strategy. A sigh escaped her lips, a rare moment of vulnerability in her otherwise unyielding demeanor. She needed a solution, and she needed it fast. Her daughter's well-being was non-negotiable, especially during a time meant for joy and peace. The answer, she decided, was clear. The answer, for Eleanor, was not a simple one, but a decisive one. She reached for her phone, bypassing her assistant, and dialed a number she rarely used, that of a high-end security firm known for its discretion and effectiveness. "I need someone," she stated clearly into the receiver, her voice firm, "someone reliable, professional, and excellent with children. For the holidays. My daughter, Lily." The firm, accustomed to the urgent and unique demands of their clientele, promised to send their best. Eleanor explained Lily's schedule, her favorite places, and the kind of protection she envisioned, not just a shadow, but a reassuring presence. She wanted someone who could blend in, someone who wouldn't make Lily feel like she was under constant surveillance, but rather a trusted companion. It was a delicate balance, one that only the most experienced could manage. Eleanor hung up, a small measure of relief washing over her. It wasn't ideal, she thought, to have a stranger in their lives during such a personal time, but Lily's safety was paramount. The thought of her daughter navigating the bustling holiday crowds, perhaps even venturing into the city for a special treat or a visit to Santa, filled Eleanor with a familiar maternal dread. This bodyguard, whoever they were, would be Lily's guardian angel for the next few weeks, ensuring every trip to the ice rink, every gingerbread house decorating party, every carol concert, was safe and joyful. Eleanor felt a fleeting sense of guilt for not being able to provide that constant presence herself, but then pushed it aside. This was the best she could do, and it was a strong solution. With this decision made, Eleanor returned her focus to the pressing matters of Vance Global, confident that Lily would be well cared for. True to their word, the security agency quickly responded. A few days later, a man arrived at Eleanor's elegant townhouse. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a quiet way about him. His name was Jake. He wasn't flashy or overly talkative, but his eyes held a steady, watchful quality that immediately put Eleanor at ease. He carried himself with a calm strength, like someone who knew exactly what he was doing without needing to prove it. Eleanor met him in her living room, a space usually filled with festive decorations but now feeling more like a formal interview setting. She looked him over, noting his neat appearance and the intelligent gaze. He seemed capable, exactly what she had asked for. She went over Lily's schedule again, detailing the ballet classes, the visits to the Christmas market, and the planned ice skating trips. Jake listened carefully, nodding now and then, asking a few sharp, sensible questions that showed he was already thinking several steps ahead. Despite his professional demeanor, there was something about Jake that nagged at the edge of Eleanor's memory. A flicker, a shadow of recognition, perhaps from a distant business meeting or a crowded charity gala. But her life was filled with countless faces, and she dismissed the feeling. He was simply a highly recommended security professional, nothing more. His presence was comforting, a solid anchor in the swirling chaos of her busy life and the upcoming holidays. She didn't know that this quiet, skilled man was the very soldier whose life she had saved years ago on a snow-covered field, a memory buried deep beneath the weight of her demanding career. He was just Jake, the new bodyguard for Lily, and Eleanor felt a wave of relief that her daughter would be safe. The next morning, Jake officially began his duties. He met Lily, a bright-eyed girl with a contagious laugh, who was initially a little shy but quickly warmed to his calm, friendly demeanor. Jake had a way with children. He wasn't overbearing or stiff, but rather a quiet, reassuring presence. He made her feel safe without making her feel watched. Lily, used to her mother's busy schedule, seemed to accept Jake's presence as a natural part of her holiday routine. Their days quickly fell into a festive rhythm. Jake accompanied Lily to her ballet practice, waiting patiently while she twirled and leaped. He stood discreetly at the edge of the ice rink, ready to help if she stumbled, but mostly letting her enjoy the freedom of gliding across the ice with her friends. When they visited the bustling Christmas market, Jake was always a step behind, his eyes scanning the crowd, ensuring Lily could safely pick out ornaments and sip hot cocoa without a worry. He even joined her for a few rounds of a holiday-themed arcade game, much to Lily's delight, showing a surprisingly good aim. Jake's approach was subtle, almost invisible to a casual observer. He didn't wear a uniform, opting instead for comfortable, everyday clothes that helped him blend in. He was there to protect, not to intimidate. Lily soon began to see him less as a bodyguard and more as a cool, quiet friend who always had her back. Eleanor often caught glimpses of them together, Lily laughing, Jake offering a small, kind smile, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. Her daughter was not just safe, she was genuinely enjoying her Christmas break, thanks to this skilled and unassuming man. While Jake's main focus was Lily, his duties often brought him into Eleanor's orbit. He would see her at home, sometimes catching a glimpse as she rushed off to work, or later in the evening when she returned, still radiating the day's intensity. He'd observe her from a distance, perhaps during a quick family dinner or when she dropped Lily off for an activity. Each time, a strange sense of déjà vu would wash over him, a whisper from a forgotten past. It wasn't a clear memory at first, more like a feeling, a deep-seated echo in his mind. He'd see Eleanor's strong profile, the determined set of her jaw, the way she carried herself with unwavering confidence, and fragments would flash through his thoughts. A biting wind, the crunch of snow under heavy boots, the distant sound of gunfire. It was unsettling, these sudden, vivid sensations that felt both incredibly real and impossibly far away. He'd shake his head, trying to clear the mental fog. He knew Eleanor Vance was a powerful CEO, a public figure, but these memories felt far more personal, more dangerous. They were sharp, cold images that seemed to belong to another life, a life he had purposefully tried to bury. But the more he saw Eleanor, the more persistent these flashes became. Her voice, when she spoke to Lily with such tenderness, would sometimes resonate with a tone he recognized, a calm authority that had once meant safety in the face of chaos. The way she moved, quick and purposeful, brought forth the image of a soldier, not a CEO. The snowy battlefield, once a locked-away nightmare, began to thaw in the warmth of the Vance home, its chilling details slowly starting to resurface in Jake's mind, always linked to Eleanor. The fragmented images and chilling sensations grew stronger, sharper, until one evening, as Eleanor was speaking to Lily about a Christmas play, something clicked for Jake. It wasn't just her voice, or her movements, but the way she held her head, the determined glint in her eyes when she spoke of something important. It was the same look he had seen years ago, etched into his memory with the cold of a winter battlefield. Suddenly, the hazy whispers solidified into a clear, stunning recollection. The biting wind, the snow swirling around them, the roar of a distant explosion. He remembered being pinned down, injured, his squad scattered. Hope had been a fading ember until a figure, strong and resolute, had appeared through the blizzard. A woman. A soldier. She had moved with a swiftness and courage that defied the chaos, risking her own life to pull him from the direct line of fire. Her face, smudged with dirt and snow, had been clear in that moment of crisis. The same determined eyes, the same strong chin, even the way a stray strand of hair had escaped her helmet. He remembered her calm commands, her steady hands as she tended to his wounds, keeping him alive until help arrived. She was a beacon of strength and hope in a desperate situation. That soldier, the one who had saved his life, was Eleanor Vance. The powerful CEO, the worried mother, was the brave woman who had once been his guardian angel on a frozen, unforgiving landscape. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. All this time, he had been protecting her daughter, while the woman he owed his life to had been right in front of him, unknowingly. The irony was profound, and a deep sense of wonder, mixed with a touch of disbelief, settled over him. The memory was clear now, vivid and undeniable. But a part of Jake, the logical, trained part, still sought concrete proof. He needed something more than just a feeling, something that would erase any lingering doubt. The opportunity arose on a particularly blustery, snowy evening. Eleanor, home early from a meeting, was helping Lily string popcorn and cranberries for the Christmas tree. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, casting a warm glow on the festive scene. As Eleanor reached for a tangled string of popcorn, her sleeve rode up just slightly. Jake, observing from his usual discreet distance, saw it. There, just below her wrist, on the back of her left hand, was a faint, jagged scar. It was small, almost unnoticeable unless you knew to look for it. But Jake knew. He remembered the sharp piece of shrapnel that had grazed her hand as she pulled him behind cover, a small price she paid for saving his life. He had seen it clearly as she bandaged his arm, a fresh wound that day, now a faded mark. His breath hitched. The last piece of the puzzle fell into place. There was no longer any doubt. The powerful CEO, Eleanor Vance, was indeed the courageous soldier who had risked everything for him. His heart pounded a little faster, a mix of awe, gratitude, and a strange, protective instinct washing over him. He was no longer just Lily's bodyguard, he was in the presence of his rescuer, a woman who, in her own way, was a hero. The festive lights of the Christmas tree seemed to blur for a moment as Jake processed the incredible truth. He had found her. The confirmation of his memory brought with it a new challenge for Jake. He now knew, with absolute certainty, who Eleanor was to him. But how could he tell her? The words felt heavy, tangled in his throat. He imagined her reaction, confusion, disbelief, perhaps even alarm. He didn't want to bring up a painful past, to disrupt the calm, secure world she had built for herself and Lily. He was hired to protect, not to cause distress. He spent the next few days observing her more closely, trying to gauge the right moment, the right words. He saw her unwavering focus on her work, her deep love for Lily, and the quiet strength that still shone through her polished exterior. Would she even remember him? He was just one of many soldiers she had helped that day, one face among a sea of trauma. To her, he might be a ghost from a life she had purposefully left behind. The thought of burdening her with this revelation, especially during the festive season, made him hesitate. Christmas was a time for joy, for family, for new beginnings. Not for dredging up old, war-torn memories. He considered writing her a letter, but that felt too formal, too distant for something so deeply personal. He thought about just blurting it out, but that felt disrespectful, potentially shocking. Jake found himself caught between a powerful sense of gratitude and a profound desire to protect her peace. He wanted to thank her, to acknowledge the immense debt he owed her, but he also wanted to avoid any pain or awkwardness. He silently rehearsed different scenarios in his head, each one ending with a different, uncertain outcome. For a man trained to act decisively in moments of crisis, this emotional dilemma was far more complicated than any battlefield strategy. He decided to wait, to let the right moment present itself, hoping it would come gently, without upsetting the delicate balance of their current arrangement. Eleanor, despite her overwhelming schedule, couldn't help but notice Jake. His quiet efficiency was remarkable. He was always there, yet never intrusive, a silent guardian who seemed to anticipate every need without being asked. She watched him interact with Lily, seeing the gentle patience in his eyes and the subtle way he guided her, always ensuring her safety without stifling her youthful energy. Lily clearly adored him, which spoke volumes. Initially, Eleanor had simply appreciated his professionalism. But as the days turned into a week, a different feeling began to stir within her. It was that same flicker of recognition she'd felt at their first meeting, now growing into something more substantial. There was a familiar strength about him, a groundedness that reminded her of a past life, a different version of herself she rarely allowed to surface. Sometimes, when their eyes met across a room, or when he would offer a brief, polite response to a question, a warmth would spread through Eleanor, a sense of comfort she hadn't felt in years. It was illogical, she knew. He was an employee, a stranger, yet there was something deeply familiar in his presence, a feeling of safety that went beyond simply protecting Lily. It was as if a part of her had known him before, in a place and time far removed from her current, high-powered existence. She found herself thinking about him more often than she should, wondering about the quiet depths in his eyes, the unspoken stories she sensed within him. It was a strange sensation for a woman who prided herself on logic and control. This vague sense of familiarity was unsettling, yet also strangely comforting, weaving itself subtly into the festive tapestry of her Christmas holidays. The city's grand annual Christmas charity event was in full swing. The ballroom of the historic hotel glittered with lights, filled with the murmur of conversation and the clinking of glasses. Eleanor, resplendent in an emerald gown, circulated among guests, Lily happily at her side, admiring the towering Christmas tree. Jake, ever vigilant, maintained his discreet position, scanning the room with practiced ease. Suddenly, a small, yet significant, incident occurred. A waiter, rushing through the crowded room, tripped, sending a tray of hot drinks crashing to the floor. The loud clatter, combined with a momentary power flicker that dimmed the lights, caused a ripple of panic. A few guests screamed, and the crowd instinctively surged forward, creating a dangerous crush near the exit. In an instant, Jake sprang into action. His quiet demeanor vanished, replaced by the focused intensity of a trained professional. Without a word, he smoothly scooped Lily into his arms, shielding her from the panicked crowd. Then, with a protective arm firmly around Eleanor, he expertly guided them away from the immediate danger. His voice, calm and clear, cut through the rising noise, giving precise instructions to those around them, helping to restore order. He moved with a speed and confidence that left no room for doubt or question. Within moments, the power was restored, and the initial panic subsided. The drop tray was cleaned up, and the event slowly returned to its festive atmosphere. But for Eleanor, the brief scare had been a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of life. She looked at Jake, still holding a slightly shaken Lily, his eyes still assessing the room. The quiet bodyguard had transformed into a protector of formidable capability. It was more than just strength, it was an innate, decisive courage that Eleanor recognized deep in her bones. The immediate danger passed, but the image of Jake's swift, unwavering actions remained burned into Eleanor's mind. She had seen him move with an almost primal efficiency, his every motion purposeful and strong. It wasn't just a bodyguard doing his job, it was something deeper, something ingrained. As she watched him settle Lily, reassuring her with a soft word, Eleanor felt a jolt of recognition, far more potent than any she had experienced before. It was the same kind of decisive, selfless courage she had once witnessed, long ago, in a completely different setting. The memory, usually kept locked away, began to surface with startling clarity. She remembered the biting cold, the chaos, the desperate plea for help. She remembered seeing a young soldier, injured and vulnerable, caught in the crossfire. And she remembered her own instinctive response, pushing past fear, moving with a singular focus to reach him, to pull him to safety. The face of that soldier, blurred by snow and stress, began to sharpen in her mind's eye. The determined set of his jaw, the raw fear in his eyes mixed with a desperate hope as she reached for him. It was the same look she had just seen in Jake's eyes as he protected Lily. The same unwavering focus. The same quiet strength that spoke volumes without a single word. A wave of goosebumps prickled her arms despite the warmth of the ballroom. Could it be? Could this unassuming man, who had so seamlessly woven himself into their holiday, be the same young man whose life she had saved? The thought was both astonishing and strangely comforting. The connection she had felt, the familiarity she couldn't explain, suddenly made a terrifying, beautiful kind of sense. Later that evening, after the event concluded and Lily was tucked safely in bed, Eleanor found Jake overseeing the final security checks of the house. The quiet hum of the holiday decorations seemed to amplify the silence between them. Eleanor took a deep breath, the question she had been holding onto for hours finally ready to be spoken. "Jake," she began, her voice softer than usual. He turned, his gaze steady and attentive. "Can I ask you something personal?" He nodded, a silent invitation to continue. Have we met before?" Eleanor asked, her eyes searching his. The question hung in the air, filled with a tension that was both hopeful and a little fearful. "Your actions tonight, your presence. It's so familiar. It reminded me of someone I knew a long time ago. Someone I helped." A subtle shift in Jake's expression, a tightening around his eyes, confirmed her suspicions. The strong pull she felt towards him, the inexplicable sense of safety and recognition, wasn't just imagination. It was real. There was a story behind those quiet eyes, a shared history neither of them had dared to acknowledge until now. The Christmas lights outside seemed to twinkle brighter, illuminating the unspoken connection that had always been there, just beneath the surface. Eleanor felt a nervous flutter in her stomach, a mix of apprehension and excitement. She knew, without a doubt, that the answer to her question would change everything. Ko took a deep breath, the moment he had both dreaded and yearned for finally upon them. He could see the flicker of hope and uncertainty in Eleanor's eyes. He knew he had to be gentle, to tell the story with care, acknowledging the heavy weight of those memories. "Yes, Eleanor," he began, his voice soft but steady. "We have met before. A long time ago, in a very different place." He paused, letting his words hang in the quiet room. "It was on a snowy battlefield, years ago. A mission went sideways, and I was pinned down, injured." He watched her face, seeing the subtle shift as the pieces began to align in her mind. "The snow was heavy that day, blurring everything," he continued, painting the scene with his words. "I thought it was the end. But then, you appeared. A soldier, moving with incredible courage. You pulled me from danger, risked your own life to keep me safe until help arrived." He lifted his hand, pointing faintly to the scar on her wrist. "I remember that. And I remember your face, even through the dirt and the snow. You saved my life, Eleanor." His gaze met hers, full of a gratitude so profound it was almost tangible. He didn't say it with drama or a demand for recognition, but with a quiet sincerity that spoke volumes. It was a simple statement of fact, a truth he had carried with him for years, and now, finally, he had laid it at her feet. The question of how she would react, how she would process this incredible revelation, hung in the air, but for Jake, the hardest part was over. He had told her. Eleanor stood motionless, her heart pounding a rhythm against her ribs that was both frantic and deeply resonant. The initial shock of Jake's revelation was profound, but as his words unfolded, describing the snow, the chaos, the desperate circumstances, the blurred fragments in her own memory clicked into place. The face that had once been indistinct in her mind's eye sharpened, taking on the features of the man standing before her. She remembered. Oh, how vividly she remembered. The young soldier, so vulnerable yet so determined, his eyes wide with a mix of pain and the will to survive. She remembered the cold of the metal, the smell of gunpowder mixed with pine, the sheer desperation of the situation. She had acted on instinct, a surge of adrenaline and training guiding her movements, focused only on getting him to safety. It was a moment of pure, raw human connection in the midst of unimaginable conflict, a moment she had rarely revisited, preferring to keep it buried with other difficult memories. Now, seeing Jake, a grown man with a quiet strength and kindness, knowing he was that young soldier, brought tears to her eyes. It was overwhelming. The powerful CEO, usually so composed, felt a wave of emotion wash over her. Not just shock, but a deep, profound sense of connection and an unexpected tenderness. She had saved a life that day, and that life had now circled back to protect hers, in the form of her daughter. It was an astonishing turn of fate, a silent promise kept across years and continents. The memory was no longer just a distant, heroic act, it was a living, breathing testament to courage and connection, standing right in front of her. The initial shock gave way to a shared, quiet intensity. Eleanor sank onto the plush sofa, gesturing for Jake to sit opposite her. The air crackled with unspoken history, now finally ready to be untangled. They talked for hours, the Christmas lights outside the window casting a soft glow on their faces as they revisited that harrowing day. Eleanor spoke of her own experience, of the adrenaline and the urgent need to act, of the fear she pushed down to do what needed to be done. She described the conditions, the desperate lack of resources, and the stark reality of war. She confessed that after the mission, she had often wondered what became of the young man she had pulled from the snow, but the demands of her own life and career had slowly pushed the memory to the background. Jake, in turn, filled in the gaps from his perspective. He spoke of the pain, the feeling of hopelessness, and then the sudden, incredible relief when she appeared. He recounted how her calm voice and steady hands had been a beacon in his darkest hour. He shared how that moment had changed his life, inspiring him to dedicate himself to protecting others, to honor the second chance she had given him. He spoke of the years he spent searching, the countless faces he scanned, always looking for the woman with the determined eyes. They pieced together their separate halves of the story, each memory enriching the other, creating a complete picture of a moment that had bound them together in an unbreakable way. It wasn't just a retelling of facts, it was an exchange of deep emotions, of gratitude, of shared trauma, and of an unexpected, profound connection that had lain dormant for so long. The conversation flowed easily, the years between them dissolving as they spoke of courage, survival, and the strange twists of fate. Children, with their keen senses, often notice things adults miss. Lily was no exception. Even before the dramatic events at the charity gala, she had grown very fond of Jake. He was different from the other adults in her life, quiet but kind, strong but gentle. He listened when she talked about her ballet, and he always knew how to make her feel safe. He was her favorite part of the Christmas break. After the long conversation between her mom and Jake, Lily noticed a shift. Her mom, usually so busy and focused, seemed softer, more relaxed around Jake. There was a new warmth in her eyes when she looked at him, a gentle smile that appeared more often. Jake, usually so reserved, also seemed to open up a little, his smiles becoming more frequent, especially when he was with Eleanor and Lily together. Lily saw them talking more, not just about her schedule, but about other things too. She'd catch snippets of laughter from the kitchen or see them sharing a quiet moment by the fireplace, a silent understanding passing between them. It was a special kind of connection, one that made her feel happy and secure. It was like a new, cozy blanket had been added to their home, making everything feel warmer and brighter. She didn't understand the grown-up reasons behind it, the past battles or the years of separation. She just knew that her mom seemed happier, and Jake, her cool, quiet friend, was now an even bigger part of their lives. Lily liked it very much. It felt like Christmas magic was making her family, in its own way, grow bigger and even more loving. She started to hope that Jake wouldn't leave after the holidays. As Christmas Day drew nearer, the air in the Vance home wasn't just filled with the scent of pine and gingerbread, it was thick with an unspoken anticipation. The conversations between Eleanor and Jake deepened, moving beyond the shared past to present moments, to dreams and fears. The bond forged on a distant battlefield, rekindled in a modern-day living room, was transforming into something new and tender. Eleanor found herself looking forward to seeing Jake each day, her professional detachment slowly melting away. His quiet strength, his unwavering kindness towards Lily, and the shared history they now acknowledged, chipped away at the walls she had built around her heart. She realized that the feelings she had once dismissed as mere familiarity were, in fact, something far more profound. A warmth, a sense of belonging, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to experience in years, was blossoming. For Jake, the feelings were equally powerful. He had found the woman who had saved him, not as a fading memory, but as a vibrant, intelligent, and loving mother. His gratitude had deepened into admiration, and then, slowly but surely, into something more. He saw beyond the CEO, to the courageous woman beneath, the one who had risked everything for a stranger. Being close to her, protecting her and her daughter, felt right, like he had finally found his place. The twinkling lights of the Christmas tree seemed to reflect the sparkling new emotions in their eyes. Old feelings, long buried beneath duty and time, were stirring, coming back to life with a gentle, hopeful glow. They were both aware of it, this quiet, growing affection, this sense of destiny that had brought them back together. The magic of Christmas seemed to weave itself around them, creating a space for their hearts to reconnect. Christmas Eve arrived, a magical night filled with the soft glow of fairy lights and the promise of joy. Lily, eyes bright with excitement, had finally fallen asleep, dreaming of Santa's visit. Downstairs, in the living room, a crackling fire cast dancing shadows on the walls, illuminating the meticulously decorated tree. Eleanor and Jake found themselves alone, a comfortable silence settling between them after a day of festive preparations. Eleanor stood by the window, gazing at the softly falling snow, a rare moment of peace in her usually hectic life. Jake watched her, the warmth in his heart growing with each passing second. He knew this was the moment. The twinkling lights of the tree reflected in his eyes as he walked over to her, stopping just a breath away. "Eleanor," he began, his voice a low, steady murmur that was both gentle and firm. I want you to know something." She turned to him, her eyes questioning, but also open and expectant. "That day, on the battlefield," he continued, his gaze holding hers. "You gave me more than just my life back. You gave me hope. You showed me what true courage looks like. And seeing you now, with Lily, seeing the incredible woman you are. It just confirms everything." He reached out, gently taking her hand, his thumb tracing the faint scar on her wrist. "You mean so much to me, Eleanor. More than I ever thought possible." The words were simple, heartfelt, and powerful. They weren't a declaration of a grand, passionate love, but a deep, honest expression of profound respect, gratitude, and a growing affection that had blossomed in the most unexpected of circumstances. Under the soft, festive lights, the weight of years and unspoken feelings lifted, replaced by a shared moment of raw, beautiful honesty. Eleanor's hand, still held gently by Jake, trembled slightly. His words, delivered with such raw honesty, resonated deep within her. All the logical barriers she had meticulously built around her heart began to crumble. The quiet strength she had admired, the familiar comfort she had felt, the profound connection that had sparked into life, it all made sense now. He wasn't just a capable employee, he was a living testament to her past, a beacon of hope, and a man who saw her, truly saw her, beyond the CEO title. A soft sigh escaped her lips, a mixture of relief and dawning realization. "Jake," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, I felt it too. That sense of knowing, right from the start. I just couldn't place it." She looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You were always there, a quiet presence in my thoughts, even when I didn't know your name. And seeing you with Lily, seeing your kindness, your unwavering protection. It stirred something in me I thought was long gone." She paused, taking a breath, her gaze unwavering. "I realized, after all these years, after all the striving and the success, that I've been waiting for someone like you. Someone who understands, someone with that kind of quiet strength, that profound goodness." Her fingers curled around his, a silent admission of her feelings. You mean a great deal to me too, Jake. More than I'm probably ready to admit. The flickering Christmas light seemed to dance in approval, illuminating the unspoken truth in her words. The formidable CEO, the woman who commanded boardrooms and empires, stood vulnerable and open, her heart laid bare. She had found a connection that transcended titles and time, a love that had been waiting patiently for its moment to bloom. With Eleanor's admission, the unspoken emotions that had been swirling between them finally found a home. Jake's hand tightened around hers, a silent promise of understanding and care. In the soft, shimmering light of the Christmas tree, they leaned into each other, sharing a gentle kiss that was less about explosive passion and more about a deep, soulful reconnection. It was a kiss that spoke of years of waiting, of a bond forged in fire and rekindled by fate, of two souls finding their way back to each other across time and circumstance. It wasn't just a moment of romance, it was a profound promise. A promise of a future where their shared past was a foundation, not a burden. A future where Lily would have not just one loving parent, but two figures of strength and kindness to guide her. They spoke softly, planning not just the rest of the holidays, but the days and months and years to come. Ideas flowed between them, tentative at first, then growing more confident, introducing Jake properly to Lily, building a life together, embracing this unexpected, beautiful turn of events. This wasn't the kind of flashy, grand miracle seen in movies, but a quiet, deeply personal one. A powerful CEO, who thought her heart was solely devoted to her work and daughter, found love. A silent hero, who had carried a debt of gratitude for years, found not just his rescuer, but a partner. And in the middle of it all, a little girl would wake up on Christmas morning to a world made brighter, safer, and infinitely more loving by the discovery of a long-lost connection. It was indeed a true Christmas miracle, born from courage, rekindled by memory, and sealed under the magic of the holiday season. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, covering the city in a fresh blanket of snow. The house, usually quiet on Christmas morning until Eleanor roused Lily, was filled with a new kind of anticipation. Lily, bursting with excitement, raced downstairs, her laughter echoing through the hall. Eleanor and Jake followed, their hearts full, ready to embrace the day and their new beginning. The living room was a scene of pure, unadulterated Christmas joy. Presents lay piled high under the glittering tree. Lily squealed with delight as she discovered her new dollhouse, a bicycle, and a stack of books. Eleanor watched her daughter's happiness, a profound contentment washing over her. But her gaze kept drifting to Jake, who stood by the fireplace, a gentle smile on his face as he watched Lily. Later, as Lily was busy with her new toys, Eleanor took Jake's hand. "This is the best Christmas ever," she whispered, her eyes shining. "Not just for Lily, but for me too." Jake squeezed her hand, his own eyes reflecting the warmth and happiness. "For me too, Eleanor. It feels like coming home." Lily, glancing up from her dollhouse, saw them holding hands. She didn't fully understand the adult feelings, but she saw the love, the happiness, and the promise of a future where Jake was very much a part of their family. She ran over, throwing her arms around both of them. "Group hug," she cheered. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of their home and the magic of Christmas, Eleanor, Jake, and Lily truly became a family. Brought together by a twist of fate that started on a snowy battlefield years ago, their Christmas miracle was not just finding love, but building a new, joyful beginning, a testament to courage, connection, and the unexpected gifts the holiday season can bring.